Kojak will be seen immediately following this political program. On October 22nd, 1986, Bella Abzug, Democratic candidate for the 20th Congressional District, appeared on this station as a guest on the Joan Rivers Show. Pursuant to the requirements of the Federal Communications Act, the station now accords equal opportunity to Congressman Joseph DioGuardi, Republican and conservative candidate for the 20th Congressional District.
Westchester's Congressman Joe DioGuardi, a fighter against tax increases and wasteful defense spending, co-sponsor of measures to keep our deductions for IRAs and state and local taxes. DioGuardi got Washington to commit federal drug agents to Westchester and to train local officers in our war on drugs. Congressman Joe DioGuardi has the experience we need in Washington, working for jobs, our children, and our parents. Our common sense Congressman, Joe DioGuardi. He's working for us.
Good evening. I'm Joe DioGuardi. When Channel 5 offered me this opportunity to speak about any issue of concern to me, I didn't have a moment's hesitation. And so I want to use these few minutes to talk about drug abuse. Long before I entered politics, I became involved with the Phoenix House, which today is the largest drug abuse services agency in the country. This involvement has taught me that there is a great deal about this problem that we don't see in our newspaper headlines. What we read about these days is crack, a highly potent, smokable form of cocaine. But the people at Phoenix House tell me that of the thousands of crack users they have seen in the past year, not one began their abuse using cocaine. Every single person had a prior history of drug abuse. In most cases, they began with so-called soft drugs, most often alcohol and marijuana. These have come to be known as the gateway drugs. Among the people with me tonight is Lillian Tawil-Drago, who heads up a number of adolescent programs, including the Drug Prevention and Education Unit of Phoenix House. Lillian, just what are gateway drugs?
When we say gateway drugs, we're usually referring to tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana. The reason that we call them gateway drugs is because we know that their use almost always precedes other kinds of drug use, such as crack use. Not only are these drugs dangerous because they can lead to other kinds of drug use, but they're dangerous in their own right. They can profoundly affect the way that youngsters grow up and the way that they function. At Phoenix House, we operate a program called Impact, which is an early intervention program for youngsters who are in early stages of drug abuse. These youngsters' drug use has not escalated to the point where they require residential treatment yet, and they are still capable of remaining at home with their families and going to school in their communities. Tonight, I have some of the Impact participants with me.
Good.
Michael, can you tell us a little bit about how your drug use started?
Well, I started when I was around 12 or 13, and I started drinking, and within a month, I started smoking pot. And not long after, I regressed from, all my friends. And, when I became depressed and lonely, and I spent most of the time in my room drinking or smoking pot, and when I went out, which was rare, I would be bored with the drugs I'd been using, and I'd try fiddle, basically, with anything else I could get my hands on.
Perry, was that the case with you as well?
Yes, it was, except the fact that I started much older. I started when I was about 14 or 15, and I started with alcohol and marijuana a little, and I did that for a while, and then I got very bored, and I started experimenting with other drugs.
Paul, in spite of the fact that your daughter didn't use hard drugs, what changes did you see in her?
Well, I saw her having some problems in school, most notably, but she was having a lot of problems in terms of she was irritable, she did not help around the house, and we had many, many arguments about staying out late some nights. But I was getting reports from the school about her having some problems, particularly lack of energy, and her grades had dropped considerably. But since she's been in the program, she has improved immensely. Her grades are up now, and she's doing very, very well.
Great. Marcia, what was Michael like when he was using drugs and drinking?
Well, he was withdrawing from us, from his friends. I've since learned that drugs are indeed autistic. He was not growing up. He was in fact regressing. And my husband and I are both so grateful to this program because Michael is now becoming himself again. And it's been a great help to all of us.
Great. Lillian, are these typical signs? What else should parents look for?
Parents should generally be aware of any significant changes in their teenagers' behavior, certainly slipping academic performance, and usually a withdrawal from the family.
Good. Well, I'd like to thank you, Lillian, and like to thank the entire panel here for this very good discussion on the problem that we have with drugs today, and I'm happy to see that the impact program at the Phoenix House is working as well as it is. Again, thank you. Well, clearly, there is a great deal more that can be said and done on this subject. In Congress, we just passed a $1.7 billion drug bill, but the important point, I feel, is that parents can make a difference. Furthermore, we have to recognize that any drug usage is harmful in and of itself. We mustn't accept the mistaken belief that some drugs, such as marijuana, are safe or relatively harmless. Thank you.
Westchester's Congressman Joe DioGuardi, a fighter against tax increases and wasteful defense spending, co-sponsor of measures to keep our deductions for IRAs and state and local taxes. DioGuardi got Washington to commit federal drug agents to Westchester and to train local officers in our war on drugs. Congressman Joe DioGuardi has the experience we need in Washington, working for jobs, our children, and our parents. Our common sense Congressman, Joe DioGuardi. He's working for us.
The preceding program, on behalf of the congressional candidacy of Joseph DioGuardi, was presented by station WNYW in accordance with its obligations pursuant to the equal opportunity provisions of the Federal Communications Act.